don't care. They just put it under their eye.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Go knock on the door of the president, try and get a meeting. You might take it. Who knows? What's up?
You said that you should turn encryption on your phone?
Oh, not encryption on your phone, but use like FIDO, UAF, or U2F wherever possible. So use encryption, use your Google authenticators, your one-time passwords, anything that's encryption based, because encryption works. If you use encryption, it works. I think even Ed Snowden said that. So, yeah. So what did I do? Like I tried to figure out how these guys got me, right? And I went through and I started doing all this research, and I figured out like, hey, this isn't just happening to me. Everyone's data's out there. Everyone's pants are on the ground. Corporation, you, me, everyone. And so I started digging a little bit more. I dug in, I found that like just this year alone, this is the latest stat, this isn't even the stats from last year, 1.2 billion credentials off social media was stolen just this year alone. Like all your social media accounts. And you think like, if you log in with Twitter or Facebook or Google, anywhere, like those actually link back to like all your services. So when Facebook announced that breach, 50 million people or 30 million people or whatever it was, like people's accounts that were tied to that were actually getting logged into on like all these other services, and you know, people were getting money stolen and things were being moved around and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, you got to think about that when your identity provider, like Facebook, is actually losing your identity. So this is a really big problem, and these stolen credentials actually lead to account takeover fraud. And you know, if you really want to put like a picture to it, there's the world. And that's how many credentials got stolen this year, just this year. So that's a third of the world's population. I mean, when you really look at it, it's broken. It's absolutely broken. We can't use passwords anymore. Like passwords just have to be done away with. Like we can't, it's awful. So how do they do it? Well, are you guys familiar with account takeover and how this stuff happens? Kind of, sort of? Yeah, so they'll get all these data breaches end up on the dark web in these massive lists where like hackers can go by botnets or credential stuffers, drop the creds into a list, and then boom. Then they target all the different websites. They'll plug these lists into all the different websites. Once they get one, then it's like, there goes your money, there goes your funds, you know, yada, 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 all the way down. So, yeah. So let's look at the problem a little bit more. Let's figure out why this is happening. Oh, shit, 100% of people use email and passwords. Yeah, that's a staggering fact. Like when you look at enterprise authentication, I mean, some companies are like getting smarter and using like biometrics and encryption and one-time passwords and all this stuff. But like as developers, when you roll a system and you roll an authentication system, you're just rolling email and password. You're not thinking about security. So, you know, so yeah, it's getting bad, and now it's epidemic type proportion. So, are you guys scared yet? Anybody have a question? So, you know, when you look at it, like when we started looking at it, like consumers like know that they've been hacked. They said that they want companies to provide more adequate securities, but like some companies just won't even add that security layer because it stops people from signing up. Like they don't care, they just want to get that customer acquisition. And it's really hard to balance like that usability with the acquisition of the end customer. And so a lot of people just kind of avoid the whole security thing when they're getting set up. So what do we do with UltraAuth? We said, forget email and passwords. We don't give a shit. We don't care. Sorry, pardon my French. Forget audience. And so we want to replace email and passwords with cryptography and biometrics. And we think by using these two things, you should be able to actually reduce or eliminate identity theft altogether. Because A, you're removing the attack vector of the credential that can be stolen, right? And you're using something that's who you are and not necessarily what you have. What you have is your device. What you have is the encryption key on the device, and how you access it is through your biometric. So your biometric is more or less like your email, and your encryption key is like your password. that doesn't type anything back to you. So it's we have zero knowledge of who you are versus like your email or some other kind of personal identifiable information that if you type in your email in a Google search plus whatever, just imagine you guys type in your email and then something in Google and just see what happens, see what comes back. You'll be able to find yourself on the internet just by Googling your own email. So if you don't think that your stuff's out there and can't be gotten to, or you can't be discovered who you are, you're mistaken. And so that's how these attackers come after you. So anyways, this is our product. This is what we're trying to solve. And are you guys familiar with FIDO, Fast Identity Online, U2F, UAF? Who uses FIDO in here? Show of hands. Anybody?
So I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I have to put a card in that has a chip on it.
Yeah, so you've got an encryption key that you plug into your machine.
We got rid of like Microsoft.
Yeah. So you're probably using some variation of FIDO or some kind of smart card access. Yeah. So FIDO was created by a consortium of companies like Microsoft, Google, PayPal. They got all their best security engineers together to kind of create like encryption standards to remove passwords from authentication. And so it's an open standard, anybody can use it. They're on the second version of it, so they went 1.0, 1.1, and now they're at 2.0. And this is kind of how it works. You register your device, you scan your fingerprint, creates an encryption key, and registers it for a specific site. So if the site's run in FIDO, that's how it works. Our product doesn't actually do this flow, it does this dance in a way, but we're using OpenID Connect in between. So we're the actual identity provider. So the difference between UAF and U2F is basically, a biometric is run and the encryption protocol is run between the device and the server, the FIDO server. The U2F is actually like just the encryption key that you plug into your USB or port or Bluetooth key. Google has a Titan key or something like that. Yeah. So our product goes something like this. You go to our dashboard, you create an OpenID Connect client, you get a token, you get a secret, you get a client ID. You drop that with OpenID Connect as the OpenID Connect client on your website or mobile app. You use our encryption protocol or the encryption client that's running on the mobile device, and then you get logged into whatever service. So if you use OAuth 2, OpenID Connect and OpenID should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We'll get into that here in a minute. So how do we all fit into this? Like, how does UltraAuth fit in the identity space? This corner over here is what I like to call you are the product corner. Every time you log in, every time you use Google or Facebook or Twitter, they're taking your data, they're selling it, they're reselling it, you are the product. That login isn't free. You're giving something up, you're leaking some data, right? Like that's shameful, and that's why we are in the kind of the predicament where we are today. It's 'cause companies are just selling data and not caring about your privacy and all this other stuff. These guys are not going to sell your data, but you're going to have to pay for the security and the privacy. You're still collecting personal identifiable information like emails and passwords and whatever else is being stored in the database that's stored at Okta or Auth0 or all these other places. In Google, well, they're secure, but you're still a product. So how do we build this? How do we build this whole system, right? Here's the flow. On the desktop sign-in, you're connecting to OpenID Connect. We're running a process to the FIDO UAF server. We're asking your device, hey device, is this person really the person who you say they are? You're running the biometric encryption locally on the device, sending it back to the you're getting encryption challenge, you're running the biometric, your biometric's going back to the server with the answer and saying, yes, this is actually the person, this is their account, OpenID Connect, issue the authorization for this person to log in. So, OpenID Connect, you don't necessarily need a password. With our stuff, you don't necessarily need a password to run the biometric encryption protocol. So you absolutely need like zero password to do any of this. and you're getting encryption. It's almost like using SSH to log in like any server. So you got your public key, you throw it on GitHub, you got your private key down, you can connect to it. It's the same thing, it's just we're opening up for the web and for mobile. So technically, you don't need an email and password to log in anything. And you, as the individual, it's just the encryption key on your device. We have zero knowledge of who you are. So, what do you guys think?
Can you set the expiration date of the key?
Of the key? I mean, do you want to pay for the full service SDK? I mean, technically you could. Yeah, you could expire the key. So the FIDO UAF client protocol, server protocol is written to be in conformance with FIDO across like the whole spectrum. But on the client side, that's the side that actually generates the key and puts the public key on the server, right? So you could change it to expire at a certain time. Yeah.
So this would have stopped the hack that you had?
Oh, undoubtedly. Like, I think that if T-Mobile actually, or the telecom people, right, they had some sort of like biometric step-up authentication where it's like, hey, you can't access your account unless you scan your fingerprint or scan your face, and the encryption key exchanges with the server, like no other way. Like, you would have to be the person who you say that you are. You can't just like call in with the last 4 digits of my social and like some personal identifiable information about me, like my address and you know what kind of car I drove. Like all that information's out there with Equifax now.
What I do is I generate a random number for those what you know type of questions. Unless I have to enter my social security, then I cannot do that. But I randomly generate it. It's like a second password.
What do you store that?
That's the thing that I was going to ask next. I have it all in like a password manager because you can't. Now I have a 30-digit number.
Yeah, you have a 30-digit number that's stored locally.
Stored locally.
Yeah, so when we get into the demo here in a minute, I'm going to walk through that, and then I'm going to show you guys how the mobile app works in conjunction. And I actually need to set this up. So I'm going to give you guys this. So this is the dance. I'm going to set it up, and we're going to walk through a demo. And just give me a minute, though. I need a, where's my bag? Behind you. There we go. So yeah. So in the mobile app itself, the mobile app is kind of like a password keeper, or it's a keychain. And so the keychain is encrypted locally on your device. So that keychain stores all your keys. Something like that. Does that make sense? Does anybody else have any questions? Shoot.
When you logged into your T-Mobile account, you had a password, right?
Correct.
And you're kind of saying that that password didn't matter, that they bypassed it?
They had actually, they called into T-Mobile like 1,000 times.
You reset it.
Yeah, they called into T-Mobile and they kept trying to port the number out. And because they had enough personal information on me, they were successful in doing that. Like the person that was at the T-Mobile like actually gave them, they said, yeah, that was close enough. And then they said, okay. So there wasn't actually anything protecting it other than just like a number, like a PIN code.
So you're saying that with your service, when T-Mobile wants to verify you, they don't ask these questions anymore. Now they're going to ask you for your biometric data.
That's right. They're going to say, scan your fingerprint on your phone. Something like that.
And once you scan, it's going to pop up at their system that.
Yeah, but
it's
unless
right.
you get T-Mobile as a client, it's not going to help.
Well, it would help a lot of other companies out there as well. So it's not just specific to T-Mobile. This is happening to everyone across the world.
The question I have for you, sorry, shoot.
No, go ahead.
The question I have for you is how accurate or how safe is the biometric data? Because I've seen people unlock phones with a picture.
Yep.
And honestly, I'm never actually very confident that my fingerprint is like so well done and captured that nobody else can.
Yeah, so we looked into this, and a long time ago, when Apple and Google were talking about putting fingerprint readers on all the phones, all the privacy nuts like jumped up and they were like, hey, wait a minute, we don't want our personal information on these devices. You can't do this. This is totally awful. Somebody's going to get access to everyone's fingerprints, and we're all going to be really, really screwed, right? So what they did is when they started the, like the fingerprint readers, they started off there. It's actually a shard of your actual fingerprint, and it's like a 1 in 50,000 chance that somebody can replicate it, which I will take those odds if somebody swipes my phone. Like, I'll take those odds. Those are actually pretty good odds versus somebody like actually taking your UB key and running off with it.
Right,
And
so two things with that.
Yeah.
1 in 50,000, there's that 8 billion people. There's going to be 8 billion people. That's going to not be that big of a,
It's not, but you'll know, like, within, are you going to go find somebody, like, to actually go through that exercise, yeah, of course, like, somebody could eventually do it, right? But by then, you could reset your iPhone, you know where all your stuff is, you could trace it. You've got all these tools that will allow you to do that.
But
So
the second part is I'm asking because this sounds very compelling. What happens with everybody who doesn't have a smartphone or doesn't have a fingerprint, like doesn't have, that is not privileged?
you can
by
go
us?
use your old email and password if you want, buddy, but at your own risk. Caveat emptor, my friend.
No, but I'm saying like T-Mobile can't just roll this out for everybody because there are a lot of people who just don't have access to this technology yet.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, if they have a cell phone, more likely it's 4G, 3G, 5G enabled, like, some kind of G, right? You're looking at first world countries. You're not going to be shipping biometric encryption off to like second, third world countries for the most part.
Actually, do it in reverse.
But actually, 70% of all of the smartphones worldwide now have Touch ID or Face ID that shipped this past year. So, like, all the modern phones are starting to get more and more sophisticated like that. So.
What if you lose your devices and let's say you're someone else?
All right. So you can restore your keychain. So we have a backup system, just like 1Password or LastPass, that allows you to store your encrypted keychain in the cloud at whatever cloud service you want. We also have like a physical key that you can plug in and back it up. So, like, if you don't trust the cloud, you don't want it in the cloud, you can store it locally. But that costs like an extra $50 if you really want that security. So we're allowing you to we're kind of replacing the password manager with this, and it's storing encryption keys instead of storing emails and passwords. So even if they did get your keychain and they were able to crack open your keychain and get into it, it's almost like, well, which websites do we point this at? Nobody would really know. Because you just have the private key there. I mean, you'd have to go through that whole thing of, creating the credential stuffer for the public key. And you'd have to hit the OpenID Connect and FIDO UAF and all these other things that are just somewhat near impossible to be able to do that. Like, you'd have to reconstruct the whole thing all over again and try and attack it. I mean, yeah. I feel like it's pretty insecure.
Do you have anything like 12 small words that you can write down and keep somewhere?
Yeah, so when you're actually creating your keychain here on the device, you have a password or passphrase that you use to encrypt it, and whenever you restore it, use that same passphrase to decrypt it. So, and we're using the highest level standard of encryption for encryption. Yeah. All right, so.
What did you say? What kind of encryption?
I think we're using I didn't write the code on React Native, so like I didn't actually roll.
Like how many bits?
I will get you the answer.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, but don't hack me, please.
I would not have happened.
Um,
I'm worried about this guy right here.
So yeah, if you guys want to go through this demo with me, what I'm going to do is you can go to GitHub/ultraauth, and we've got Rails samples, we've got Node, Python, and I don't know if we have Go up there, but you can basically walk through the whole tutorial with me if you want. You guys ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right. So, thankfully, we have enough talented engineers on the team to actually have, created, enough sample apps that do like one-click deploys to Heroku. So this demo only takes about 5 minutes or something like that. There's actually a sample video. If you guys like go and sign up, you go register, you can watch a sample video. It kind of walks you through the same tutorial I'm about to take you through. So let's go to Rails. And what that did right here is create your OpenID client and your OpenID client secret. And it's got the rest of the information in there that we're going to go post to Heroku. So we're going to go hit this deploy to Heroku button. And it's going to take all those credentials, it's going to drop them into Heroku. We're going to add like the actual URL, we're going to give it a name. We're just going to call this like Austin RB. All right, that's available, I'll take it. And HTTPS. That. And now we're going to deploy that app. We're going to go back into UltraAuth and we're going to edit the callback URL. If you guys are familiar with this dance, it's just like your regular OAuth 2. You've got to have your callback URL. And Austin RB. So now we've just updated the provider with this. We've updated the OpenID provider with the client information, so now it knows who it's talking to. And yeah, so I'm going to walk you through the mobile app real quick. The mobile app actually allows you to manage your keychain, so you'd be able to come over here, create a keychain, give it an encrypted password. If you want to restore it, you can. Right now we have it set up for Dropbox, but we're going to allow Google Drive, iCloud, something like that. And by the way, like Android only has like 60% coverage. If you have a Pixel, it's not going to work. We haven't worked out all the bugs yet. I mean, quite frankly, this is all bootstrapped, self-funded, so if you're an Android or a React Native guy, I'd really love some help. So the app is deployed, and now what we're going to do here is we're going to do this little dance between OpenID Connect. So we're at austinrb.herokuapp.com. We have this login button. We're going to go hit our identity provider, and that's going to take us to the OpenID Connect provider. So this would kind of be like logging in with Facebook or logging in with Google or logging in with Twitter. So we would want to register. And that creates a QR code for us on the web for now. And I drop that in there, scan the QR code. I don't know if you guys can see that. There we go. And it's asking for my Touch ID. Scan my Touch ID. And now we're logged in. We've got all our OpenID response information from the provider with tokens and everything. So all this is wired up in the Rails sample, the Python sample, and the Node sample on GitHub. So you can check it out. And it functions just like a regular identity provider. So you can stay logged in or sign out. If you're logged into other services using our identity provider, then if you're already logged into this one, you will log into another app. It just goes ahead and like logs you right in. So let me show you that. Go to Acme. So Acme is another one of these providers, and I go to login, and it just says authorizing, and then I'm logged into the app. So if you want to log out, I would log out. I would say yes, sign me out here, and it would sign you out of the other app as well. So if I refresh that page. Did it log me out at all? Hold on. Yeah, there you go. So technically, just like any other OpenID Connect provider, like your Google, like your Facebook, something like that. And if you go to the login here, you can see the Austin RB. Hold on a second. I need to delete some of these keys. Yeah, so this is what we just registered here, Austin RB. All this stuff is local on your app. It's not stored in the key or the keychain or any stuff like that. So this allows you the identification of like where it is. So that's the demo. Thanks, guys. So questions, concerns, cheap shots, hit me. I need a technical audience to like really wrap me through the ringer here. So you guys are my first technical audience I pitched. So
What if your identity provider itself gets hacked? What if your like backend service gets hacked?
if our FIDO UAF server gets hacked, it only has public keys. It only holds public key information. It doesn't hold any information about you or anything. So
Wait, wouldn't the attacker be able to authenticate anyone?
no, because you have to have the dance with the private key.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so the private key is stored locally here. If we go back here, right? So your private key is on your phone. When you hit step 3, it sends an encryption challenge using your public key to your private key. Private key answers. But you can only access your private key with your biometric.
Can you associate multiple devices?
Yeah, so we're actually looking at, when you back it up to like Dropbox or iCloud or whatever, you can restore it to another device. So if you lose your device, you can put it on your Android or you can put it on whatever
So
else.
if I don't have access to my phone at all, for example, and my phone is the thing, and I don't have a touchpad laptop, how can I log in? I don't have a touch ID.
You don't have Touch ID on there?
No, I'm assuming like,
Have you thought of creating a?
Yeah, so
creating
if you guys would like to give me some money, I'll go roll the desktop client. But yeah, I mean, we've thought about creating like a mobile and desktop version. Like we kind of have it on the product roadmap right now, but it's all about figuring out like what people want. Generally speaking, if I had the money to do it, I'd roll it right now. And that way, like you could sync it between your desktop and your mobile phone. So if you had a fingerprint reader on your device, like you should be able to do that.
okay. I'm thinking about our users, right?
Sure.
And our users are not going to be like us. They're not gonna have, and that's a fact. Like they're just not gonna have access to all these things all the time. So they're going to be in a pickle where they need to access our site or our app for some reason, and they don't have access to their phone. The battery is dead.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And so they won't be able to.
Yeah, I don't know how to solve that problem. I'm just solving the security problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't a device that was not biometric, so if every bad movie in the last 20 years, right, so somebody's lifted fingerprints or they've taken somebody's eyeball out. You know what I mean? It's,
Mission Impossible.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, what stops somebody from stealing my biometric data and entering it into the phone?
Well, then they also have to steal the phone. So like, as long as you.
Yeah,
keep the
it's
phone,
like, I mean,
that's not-
I run through this question and I've run this through my head a couple of times, a couple of thought experiments, and like I think that, for somebody to want to do that to you, I mean, they either A, have to really hate you, or B, think you're worth a lot of money, and there was a lot of money attached to your device. I think that in that scenario that plays out, right? But I think in regular everyday world where you're like buying stuff at Target or buying checking into your Marriott or whatever website you're logging into, this is more for that type of audience. Getting to the bank stuff, that could happen, but
So I remember RSA was hacked a few years ago when they had the key fobs.
yeah.
So that was a problem. So then Vasco was the thing for a while, and people are stopping using that, and then they're going to actual smart cards themselves, like credit card has smart card, it's the same kind of thing. On computers, to log into a computer itself. And I work in DoD, so they really do some crazy stuff on that side, but,
Yeah.
which is kind of overkill actually, but,
Yeah, so like NIST and those guys in government that issue all the security stuff, they like FIDO. They like FIDO UAF specifically. We talked to this company that is based out of San Antonio, and they run the smart cards. They have their own certificate of authority that they issue the cards to. And they were like, hey, we want to use your service. But when we showed them the architecture of using it, going in through OpenID Connect and through the cloud, they weren't really interested. But they like the technology itself because you can tie that smart card to a biometric on a third-party dongle and use like a real biometric in order to use it, and that's what they were kind of shooting
Yeah,
for.
because right now you have to type in 6-digit code.
Yeah, they're trying to, these guys were trying to attach it to the biometric, but use like a third-party true biometric, not like a, you know, device biometric that's managed by, you know, whatever security.
So no one really has that out there? Because my boss was asking about that.
Yeah, no, we've looked at it, but the spec for us to like go and build all that with their infrastructure was just like, okay, how many people are gonna use this? And like, you know, the TAM really wasn't there for us to like go after it. I mean, great if you work in identity for the government.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, the Army Cyber Command just
Yeah,
parked their cells here, so.
yeah, they're here, but you
I
know,
mean, they're kind of not here, but.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I think like, you know, I'd love to talk to him. Hey, Josh, I'd love to talk to him. So.
You know, there's always, if there's a progress, there's always some kind of regress on that, right? When we create something, there's always something that they always hack or they try to find a way to hack. Like they say, you know, your camera, your phone or computer camera always, somebody's watching you or somebody is, can they do like duplicate your face or, and then, you know, use that as a, I don't know.
I think that the way that the iPhone works right now with the face recognition, they kind of, you actually have to have something physical because it looks at the 3D of the face. So like it's all about like the geometry around it. So like technically if somebody like took a bunch of pictures of you and had like a 3D model of you, like they could do it. But like, I mean, that's a lot of work.
How about like a scanning view, like?
I don't know if the phones are actually capable of doing that per se. They would have to like recreate it with like, you know, like kind of how you would recreate like like how Google Maps recreates like the 3D view of like whatever they're driving by. Like you'd have to have something that does that kind of imagery analysis.
So if this became ubiquitous everywhere, and I'm in a country where it's not as say friendly as here, and they wanted to force me to divulge everything about me, they could do it with my thumb.
Well, they could, but there's a PIN code that you can use instead of actually using your thumb. So like we can switch with FIDO UEF, like the original spec called for just a 4-digit or 5-digit or 10-digit PIN. So you could technically just run that instead of using your biometric. Your biometric is a little bit more in some ways secure than something that's knowledge based. I think I proved that with the demonstration. So
is the biometric copies can be stolen or?
can it be replicated?
No, stolen, like for
Stolen
example.
from your device?
Yes.
Yeah, so what Apple and Google does is whenever they take your fingerprint scan or your face scan,
They keep that
they keep it
information, right?
local on the root level of the device.
So can that information be stolen?
I mean, if you want to hack somebody's phone, technically, sure, why not?
Okay,
Everything can be gotten to.
Okay.
But if you're trying to eliminate an account credential, account takeover type scenario on a mass scale, like you could individually target people, but that's a hell of a lot more effort than going and buying passwords on the dark web and trying to run this kind of fraud, trying to go after this problem.
Some people with Apple specifically, they don't just store it on the device, they also store it like in a specific chip within the device. So they don't just store it like in the regular memory or whatever. So, and basically that data is not supposed to leave the chip at all. So the device itself, kind of like the overall device, it wouldn't have any sort of like idea about your fingerprints, right? It would just be the individual chip within the device.
I think if the concern is, will they ever get to be able to use my login, they can just get you at gunpoint and just ask you to.
There's always that, yeah.
Right, so that is, you know, solved. Like we know how to hack you that way if we really want it, you know. So the idea of, yes, can we get away from doing social engineering and social hacking? I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah.
I think where it falls short is the usability of it. So, and that's the tug of war that you're doing between security and usability. And if, you know, at the end of the day, if you have to service your users, and this is not accessible to everybody, then you're not able to provide it, and that's.
Yeah, so where we're looking at is, you know, we don't want to be the Facebook or the Google, right? Like, we want to offer this to specific enterprise, you know, at some level, right? And depending on how they want to white label it or roll it into their solutions for their customers, they can do that. I mean, we're still in talks with like a lot of different companies on how to actually use this product, right? We've rolled it, but like I said, we haven't built the rest of the product because we're still like saying, okay, what do you guys want us to do with this? Because we know that it's useful. We know that like it gets around a lot of these bigger problems that they're facing. Like Marriott gets breached, 500 million people, you know, have to go reset their passwords. Quora gets breached the same week. It's like.
So I think like you mentioned Marriott breach a couple of times, but I think the issue with Marriott breach is that I don't think they actually got the passwords. Like I've never seen.
Yeah, they got the password, their names, emails, home address,
they got your
passports, numbers. Yeah.
So I think like everyone was kind of concerned about people having like passport data.
The passport.
Like, how do you kind of like how does your system solve that? Because your system doesn't protect against that.
Yeah, so we're more of the access point,
Right.
right? So we don't want to know any of your personal identifiable information.
Yeah, the database is still susceptible.
Database would still be susceptible.
I mean,
So we
That-
protect against the
Technically, that's another product idea that somebody else should go solve.
well, the Office of Personnel Management got hacked, and they stole every person in the country's security clearances, all their information from their SF-86, and that's a lot of information.
That's a data security problem.
Right.
We're like an access security problem. I think we want to make sure that even if all that stuff happens, nobody can log into your account. Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to because you would.
Yeah. All the breaches, a lot of the breaches are happening through phishing, through ransomware, through social engineering, through these data breaches. But like 75% of these attacks that, you know, where the data breaches happen, they use some form of stolen credential from somebody. Like they're gaining access into the network at the enterprise level. So, you know, you solve this problem.
Well, that's the thing, right? So the Chinese probably have everything about me since I've ever divulged to anybody, unfortunately. But they can't use that with your system because you're not going to use that for social engineering. They might approach me and try to be a spy, but they're not going to try to social engineer. They're not going to use that data to get hacked into my stuff.
Unless the chip on your phone
Yeah,
sends the information back to them.
no, but the with your
Because that's
phone
what
hack,
happened, that's what actually happened with the credit card in Europe,
yeah.
where they actually, the hack was in the chip itself, that was in the credit card processing companies.
There's not much we can do about that.
That's a
Counterfeit problem with manufacturing. How did your phone get hacked socially?
Yeah, so,
Are you still using T-Mobile?
hell no. Hell no. I am suing T-Mobile right now.
You are, good.
I am suing the shit out of them.
We actually are.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I found an attorney to take it on contingency. I was like, $1 million, go get it. Go get it.
You should.
How long ago was that?
May last year.
2017.
Yeah.
I
So
think more people
how long
should
will this
sue.
suit
That way
take?
this stuff would stop.
Huh?
More people should sue than they try to.
Well, you heard what they have is this shitty binding arbitration clause that they put into all their contracts. So if they're negligent, like they were in my case, where they warned me about it, still weren't able to stop them, you know, you could go to court, you could get a jury trial, and just sue the ever-living crap out of them. But what the corporations have done these days, and I hate to say this, but you know, they put these binding arbitration clauses into anything consumer-facing. So if they receive a breach or you know something like this happens, like you're forced to go to court with them. So what that does is that limits your upside and like what you can actually get in terms of damages. So like they throw that in there and you're just kind of stuck with whatever. If you don't have the resources to go after it or find somebody who's willing to take it on for you, you're kind of screwed. Like, you know, yeah.
Well, that's the way the courts work. If you don't have the resources to take on anybody, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is a little bit different. You actually come in probably like more if you just take the company by yourself. But the problem is that you're just a single person.
Yeah,
Like,
the
for a
only,
single
like,
person to-
what you're talking about is like a class action suit.
Right.
Class action suits only come when everybody is harmed in the same way.
Right.
So like a data breach happens and then like, you know, 1,000 people lose like whatever. And so like, then all those people join up and do a class action. You know, it's funny, like, you guys
So
work
like
for
during the
Uber?
time, a lot of people got their numbers.
Has anybody ever worked for Uber?
Worked for Uber?
Yeah, anybody? Okay, so I read this yesterday, and basically, like, all the drivers, or like a good majority of the drivers from Uber, like, wanted to sue Uber in a class action suit, and they put this binding arbitration bullshit into their clauses with all their drivers. So each of the drivers filed independently in arbitration. 12,500 people are taking Uber into binding arbitration. So like that's money that Uber has to pay for each one of those arbitrations.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like now Uber's kind of like screwed. But that was smart. You know, anyways. So
So I should buy Lyft, I feel.
yeah, you should use Lyft.
So did you not have two-factor authentication?
I did. I had two-factor authentication everywhere where it was possible, but the loophole was Google automatically, at some point in my lifespan of using Google and Google Apps, they had default set SMS for like everyone. And so I didn't ever choose that. I had my YubiKey on there, right? And then my phone number was on there. So like if you go to your Google account, if you have SMS set, it's like, are you having trouble? And it's like, hey, log in with one of these other methods. And it's like, it'll show you what's there. Yeah, so like if they knew my phone number, they were able to say, okay, I'm gonna plug this number in. Oh, does it work? Does it send a message? And if it does, they knew what my number was. So they knew my email and they knew my phone number. And you can get that on any reverse number lookup that's out there.
Yeah.
You can figure out where the carrier is. So if you know somebody's email, you know who they are, you can go dig all that information off the internet.
Did you find out who did it?
I might have.
Do you know why you?
So I got attacked at the same time my brother got attacked, and like 5 other people I know got attacked. And it was a massively coordinated attack by a government somewhere. Not sure. Maybe Asia? North Korea? Something like that.
Something has to do with your name?
Yeah, well, I was pretty big into crypto about 4 or 5 years ago. I brought the first Bitcoin ATM in the United States in Austin. And I was on like national TV and Bloomberg and USA Today, and it was like super famous for about 15 minutes, and then like it all went away. And then I got out of crypto like the end of that year. We did like a giant mining operation. We had like, we bought all these like ASIC boards and put them in like liquid immersion or liquid cooling immersion stuff, and put them in a shipping container with like industrial like fans like regenerating the cooling liquid. And we blew it up, of course, like we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. But we were sure mining the shit out of some Bitcoin. And yeah, it was at some point like Bitcoin mining becomes inefficient, like once you're below a certain amount of money. That's why like 500,000 miners shut off like a couple of weeks ago. And so unless you're getting like super cheap energy from like government funded subsidies like they do in China with hydroelectric power, like you're really not gonna be able to compete and earn Bitcoin at a rate that like actually makes mining efficient. That's how much power it uses. Kind of sucks. But so yeah, we were involved in all that stuff, and then I guess they started compiling a list of people. First they got my brother, like the day before T-Mobile called me and warned me, and then I did everything T-Mobile told me to, and then next morning it was gone.
Wow.
Yeah. And then what they started doing is once they had my email and my other accounts, they were using my accounts to like request money from other people on Coinbase. They tried to drain my PayPal account. They used my email to like blackmail other people. They were like hacking in, like once they got access to somebody's personal information, they were like downloading like porn videos and like whatever was like there in their personal information and like using that and like blackmailing people. Like it was savage. It was really savage. And people were calling me and telling me that they wanted to kill me. And I was like, dude, like these guys got us all. Like they got me, they got you, they got everybody. I mean, it's like this dark web of deceit and mistrust everywhere.
All pretty much within a few days of each other.
Man, like 5, 6, 7, 8 days. You know, it was.
And there's nothing you could have done.
It was the.
What's the guys for T-Mobile? How did they get the other people?
It was the same week that the WannaCry ransomware was released, and so like that took all the headline away from like whatever was happening to us. And then we submitted our stuff to. I have some friends in government, and I submitted stuff to them. They took it to like the head of the FBI. I like sent them like all the correspondence that I had with the hackers. I even talked to these fuckers on Google Hangouts, and I was like, "Why are you doing this to me?" And I was like, they were like, "Because your security's shitty." And I was like, "Oh man, I just wanted to jump through the Google Hangout and like punch this dude." But then I asked him, I was like, "Hey, are you guys for hire?" And then he laughed a little bit, and I was like, "All right, I might have this guy." Like. And he's like, okay, he's like, "I like you. We got all your passwords." He's like, "We know everything there is to know about you." And then he hung up. It's like some shit out of a movie, dude. I'm not kidding you. Like I had to shut off the internet at my house because like this guy, he hacked my Apple ID and then he started zapping my phones. He zapped my phone and then my iPad. Then I saw my iPhone just get reset and wiped. And then I basically shut my machine, unplugged it, ran upstairs and unplugged my router so he couldn't wipe that. And it took me like 3 weeks of going back and forth to the Apple store at Barton Creek to try and get my MacBooks unlocked. And these assholes, I was like, I got one MacBook unlocked under the same Apple ID by producing a receipt. I had to go dig through like 3 or 4 years of receipts just to try and find like where my receipt was for my MacBook. And it was like, I couldn't find the other receipt because it was emailed to me in an account that these guys had hijacked. So like, yeah. Try and get your life back when you don't have a machine. Like, it was damn near impossible. I have a burner phone. I have 2 burner phones in my backpack right now. I have like a little candy bar phone that I bought at Walmart with cash. It's not associated with my name at all. Like, it's just, it's in there. And that's like what I use for, and it's like old, like old. Like, it's like
No, but it can be geolocated to you. Like, you carry it together with your other phones, and like, it's just like beyond trivial to put it
I
in
mean,
a person.
I don't know. I don't know if they have geolocation on these phones, but
Well, it can be triangulated. Just based on
only
the
if
power
it's
density.
turned on, I believe.
Right. Oh, you keep it off?
This guy.
You keep it off?
Yeah, how sexy is that? But yeah, it's off, like at all times. I only use it like when I want to reset like a password or something that's tied to SMS. Going to extremes, man, because once they target you once, it's like they'll keep coming after you. If they steal money from you, they'll keep coming after you and like keep trying to get you.
Is this like a group of people?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And they're in Asia?
yeah.
Where?
So when I went through the actual log of all my data on Google, I guess these guys kind of screwed up somewhere because I was able to track them in the Philippines. And so like the guy had like accessed Gmail or something from a mobile device, like a Samsung mobile device, and it pinged in the Philippines. So I'm assuming like they were there. They were there in the Philippines. But I don't know, they had to be like contractors or part of like a larger network or group of people because the attack itself was massively coordinated. Like it was not like 3 guys or 10 guys or 20 or 50. It was like a lot of people.
What did the FBI say to you?
Thanks for the info.
Really, that's it?
Yeah, that was it.
There's no protection
Huh?
to you as a person, as a citizen, or anything that says, hey.
Oh yeah, the internet police? Yeah,
No,
those
not
guys
the
don't
police,
exist.
But like, you know, you've identified that you've been proven that you've been hacked. So, you know, when you're trying to get your life back together, that you have say, hey, listen, I got this affidavit from the FBI. Like, this laptop belongs to me. I've been, you don't.
Yeah, they don't care. None of the private companies care. Like, they're like, bring me receipts, show me proof of purchase. Like, you know, like for my GoDaddy account, trying to get that back, I had to produce my ID, my passport, a bunch of other information about me. Then, like, even after I had done all that, I got my account back, the hackers kept trying to like get my GoDaddy account. They tried to steal it, so I was like, hey, can you guys just change my account number or something? These guys keep trying to hack into my account, keep trying to reset the password. And they were like, no, you gotta burn your GoDaddy account to the ground and go create a new one. And then I had to transfer all my domains in like one day. I had like 50 domains. I just sat there in the booth at WeWork for like 8 hours talking to this one guy. I was like,
So what advice
Yeah.
do you have when you create an account that doesn't have the protection
What-
you're demonstrating?
what do you do?
Yeah, what advice do you have? when
I
you
mean,
create an account
like I said,
that's-
like
that's
create a unique email that's not tied to you anywhere. You can use Fastmail, you can use Proton Mail. Just go create an alternate email account that you pay for that's not related to Google, and use that as like your primary for all your financial services, anything that touches money, and don't use it anywhere else. And I would completely shut down all your social profiles from people searching you. I'd scrub a lot of the data, as much data as you could about yourself off the internet. We're all capable people, like we all do that. I would also use YubiKeys, because that's what's readily available right now. Use encryption keys they're like $15 on Amazon or $10 or whatever. Just use it for any place that manages your identity, like GitHub or Facebook, or Twitter doesn't even have it yet, which is surprising.
Twitter doesn't care what it does.
Twitter will use SMS two-factor, but yeah, your banks are going to use all this other like personal information about you to identify you, which is like really stupid. So like I would use all that. I wrote a blog post on it. If you go to blog.ultraauth.com, like there's a whole like laundry list of stuff you can do. So yeah. Well, thanks guys. Oh yeah.
It's more not using, excuse me, relying on one of these identity providers in the first place and managing them separately everywhere.
What do you mean?
Basically not using Facebook authentication or any of these.
What do I think about it, or what's your question?
I mean, I don't use any of these, so it's like, at least that vector is, it's a little more tedious, but, less convenient.
Oddly, that's how I got my Netflix back. I remember, because they used my Gmail password to get into my Netflix, but then I remember I one time used Facebook also to get in. I'm like, oh, that's right, I'm gonna use Facebook. So I used the Facebook authentication. It got me back into Netflix. There was the guy's account on there who was definitely from an Asian country. And then mine, that's separate, bro. He changed a bunch of stuff, like settings and preferences.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna go now call Netflix, which they responded. They said, okay, looks like you were hacked. And then I changed the password back, and I said, take that. I don't want to be able to use that account, a Gmail account anymore to be able to authenticate. I only want, well, unfortunately now I gotta worry about Facebook being hacked, but, so yeah, it's a pain.
Yeah.
And that was minor. Your story is just, I'm
Yeah.
not sleepwalking.
Man, like 30 minutes after it happened, I was driving, or like 20 minutes after it happened, I was driving like 90 miles an hour down Slaughter to my bank to like tell them to give me all my money. I was like, give me all my money. Like I walked in, I was like, I had 6 accounts at Chase for like different, like my consulting, my nonprofit, and like all this other like personal and stuff. And I was like, give me all my money. And then they wrote like cashier, I got like 10 or 15K in cash. I got like the rest of my money in cashier's checks, and I just like swiped it all. I was like, yeah. I didn't trust it because they try to wire money from my personal to my business and wire it out to Asia. And like as soon as my wife got that alert on her phone, like, I mean, I was gone.
My friend, he works at Microsoft in Seattle, but he was on a motorcycle journey through South Dakota, stopped at some gas station. He never, ever uses his ATM card. They took that, they actually made an identity with somebody who looks like him, went to his bank, convinced them to reset the password on the bank account at the bank, and then give him another card at the bank, somebody else. They wiped out everything.
Yep.
They were taking, and it was like, and the bank said, well, you need to file a police report. And then
Yeah.
and then they're like, well, he's like, well, how do I do that? This happened in Ohio. I'm in Seattle, so he calls Ohio, and they're like, well, we're not dealing with this. You're in Seattle. And then he calls Seattle, they're like, we're not dealing with that. That happened in Ohio.
Yeah, yeah. Law enforcement around this kind of stuff is just absolutely awful. I'll tell you my experience. I called the police officer to make a report, and the guy shows up in my house, and he's like, can you explain to me what cryptocurrency is? And I was like, oh shit, here we go. So like, even the guys in the FBI, they'll have like, they just have this one form online. You go to IRC or i3c.gov or something, and like you file a report there, and it just goes into this black hole. Like you never hear from them. Like you call them like 50 times, and like you never hear back from them. It's just, it's useless. So if this kind of stuff happens to you, you really have no recourse except like sue the company, who might have a binding arbitration clause in their back pocket. So protect yourselves, guys. Stay vigilant.
I think at the end of the day, it's the weakest link that kind of gets you.
The
Like
what?
with the weakest link that gets you.
Oh yeah.
Like with the T-Mobile thing, I mean, they ultimately they were the ones that released the numbers, right?
Yep. Yeah.
They were supposed to like change pins or whatever. They never did that, right?
They never did that. No.
And even if they did that, like I would imagine that if the people were really serious, they could have hired like someone in the U.S., right?
Well,
Who would just go to the store.
Do you know what we found out is that T-Mobile has majority of their call center in the Philippines.
Oh, right. That's right.
Oh, wow.
So,
They did
yeah.
a side job.
Yeah.
It's worse
So,
than a social hack.
yeah.
You should definitely sue them.
Oh yeah.
I think like most of Chase as well. I think Chase, most of their call centers are in the Philippines.
By the way, your safety net is your son being famous.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, that's right now, the only way you can get any action is if you're internet famous. And you can get a bunch of people behind you, that's the only way you get
Yeah,
attention.
so, I mean, I follow like big, like people who have massive followings on social media. They're getting their accounts hacked. Like, I mean, everyone from porn stars to like esports famous gamers, right? And like, I'm talking to all these people that are like, one guy had his play, he leveled up all the way to like, you know, general on Call of Duty Black Ops. And then somebody hacked him and then like reset all his stuff. And like, I mean, it was like, yeah, and I'm getting all these Google alerts to like my inbox like every day. And I tweeted at this guy and I was like, hey man, you wanna talk? You wanna go talk to PlayStation with me? And it's like, you know, and you see like, you know, shit, who was it? Some porn star, she got her Instagram hacked and like, they just wiped her account. She had like 4 million, 3 million followers. It's like people are just losing, like, and that's valuable to these people, you know, like that's how they make their money. And so, yeah.
So one thing, your anecdote just reminded me of one audiobook which is available at the library and it's available as a book is Kevin Mitnick, the famous or infamous 310 guy. He has written a good book on just, you know, going through improving your, you know, just online security and online hygiene. And he has lots of tips on like, yeah. And one of which is, yeah, using just totally random and fake information. Never done them like your city of birth or hospital or anything like that. And, I mean, basically, reducing chances and yeah.
Yeah.
And those are things which are like publicly known. I'm sure there are like, you know, more advanced techniques as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out, man. What's the name of the author?
Kevin Mitnick.
Kevin Mitnick?
Yeah, he's a security consultant. He went to jail in the 90s. There's a famous movie based on him.
Oh, he's a security consultant.
Yeah, he's a reformed, quote-unquote, reformed. was a phreaker back in the day, the ones that whistle into the phones to get free phone calls.
Oh, yeah,
He
yeah.
was the guy that they said could launch nukes from a payphone.
Global thermonuclear.
There's somebody, I don't know if it's probably not the same guy, but there's somebody here in Austin who used to be a black hat hacker, got caught, turned and became a security consultant.
I don't know.
There
if
it is.
maybe he lives there.
In Austin?
I don't know.
And also, there's a guy here, I've met him.
There's a bunch of guys like that.
He's given a talk at Refresh Austin.
AT&T used to hire these people, like, I mean.
Yeah, he got caught, so he, the FBI caught him or whoever, and in return, he became a white hat hacker for them, and that's how he
So
avoided.
Kevin wrote mostly in his book about social hacking because that's how he got.
Yeah.
So his big hack was he got the ability to set the phone company can tell who you are by your phone number, right? By how he's doing the switch. And he could change all that information and make a phone call seem like it was coming from anywhere. So he had basically owned the entire phone network as far as being able to say who he was. So he'd make a phone call, and his phone call could look like it was him or whoever. So when they tried to tap his phone, he could literally go in where they tap phones and change it. So they would be tapping somebody else's phone.
So
the FBI was kind of interested in that. But he got that information by socially hacking the company that makes that.
Right.
Wow.
He's very good at socially, just talking to different secretary and figuring out the whole org chart and whatnot. I mean, that's a real skill,
So the other guy,
So he was faking who he was to get information, inside information. That's interesting.
yeah, he got in a war with a white hat hacker, and they kind of went back and forth. And he was trying to make it so that he could get cell phones untraceable, so he could use those more locally. And that's how he got caught. They didn't catch him.
Yeah, that advice on that.
Man, security is like a whole other world. It
My
really
dark
is.
arts college course only taught us how to hack our grading, the grading system. That's the only thing they taught us. Just
Yeah.
to stack buffer overflow.
You go look for the piece of tape on the desk of the admin to see what she wrote the password.
No, seriously, I mean, we had a course that was called Dark Arts. They made us sign a thing that we would never use this skill in real life. But our grade on the final, our grade on the class was the same as our grade on the final, which is if we can hack the professor's system to set our grade ourselves, we would get that grade. So I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting, and this is not at all what real life hacking is.
My
Just-
company gets over 1,000 penetration attempts by Russia and China a day.
Yep.
And a lot of it's phishing or just penetration stuff. It's just bad.
In the financial services industry,
Oh,
it's even
yeah,
worse.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
Advanced persistent threat and all that.
That's why we had to go to the key card and stuff. And
Yep.
It's just bad.
One
Yeah.
other thing which, just my own, rule of thumb is, there are some companies which aren't hacked anywhere near as much as others. And it's a good idea to do some research on that. There are some financial services firms which, the CEOs, they take it very seriously. And others where it's a cost item, and those are the ones that get hacked. So it pays to research things,
We need to talk some more.
It's hard to find this information,
Yeah.
But it is, well, anyways,
Mana, I think that, in all the talks that we've been having with people, a lot of it is, can